What is up, everybody? We are back with almost the entire Vols ATB crew. Tonight we have DR Vol back and Brando and myself, but we're also joined by two more guests. We have Alex, which you can find him on Twitter at AlexJones1520. And then we also have Drew. You can find him on Twitter at IamDrewMan. No Bandit tonight, but we are going to continue rolling with it. So before we get started, Alex, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then Drew, you can follow after him.
Cool. So, like she said, my name is Alex Jones, born and raised in the Johnson City, Elizabethton area. So, about as northeast Tennessee as North Carolina will let you be. Grew up here, been here for, I guess, the whole time, 23 some years like that. And went to school at Milligan College, now Milligan University. Played basketball there for a few years. And then I'm now at the University of Miami in PT school. So that's kind of where I've been for the last little bit in between here and, well, I guess Northeast Tennessee and South Florida. So it's a little bit about me. Drew, you can take it away.
Yeah. My name is Drew. Was born in Knoxville, lifelong Vols fan, unfortunately. Grew up in Atlanta, but lived the last 5.5, 6 years in the Czech Republic in Europe before moving back here in Knoxville for work. Also, you probably may have heard my voice from the drive from last year as well. Still writing content as well for Fox Sports Knoxville.
Very cool. We were super excited to have both of you guys on. I'm sure it's going to get interesting tonight because our first topic is unfortunately the terrible blowout loss to LSU at LSU. Vols lost 67-79 this past Saturday. So I guess we will start out with DR and just go around and see what everyone's first thoughts are.
My first thoughts, of course, Will Wade, known cheater, FBI's up his ass. But my first thoughts, man, they were just a way better team than us. And it didn't help that we couldn't throw it in the ocean, man. One thing that blew my mind from that game is Fulke had one shot. It's your 6th year, and you shoot it one damn time. I don't even know if he had 20 minutes that game, but shit, man, you shot it one time. Like, you're the folk hero, and I love Fulke. I'm not coming down on him. It's just that blows my mind. He had one shot, and it really disappoints me that game. I like how we climbed back into it, but I'm very anti-participation trophies and all of that, so it doesn't matter. We could have won by or lost by 2 or 20. It's the same. A loss is a loss. And LSU, give it to them, man. They had a great atmosphere, but I mean, damn, man, hit free throws. And Fulke is who we're going to ride on all year, or who we should anyway, or who we thought preseason. And one shot, man, that's so disappointing. One damn shot. And I'll move on.
Pretty much, DR pretty much hit it where I was going to say. I personally haven't been able to catch the last 2 games because I've been working, but when I looked at the stat box and saw that Fulke had attempted only one shot, that kind of blew me away. Like DR, he's a 6-year senior. He's, supposed to be the leader of this team, put this team on his back. If this team's going to be able to run, it's going to be through John Fulkerson. Just right now, as the freshman Kennedy Chandler gets used to the speed of college basketball. Kennedy Chandler, he did have 19 points, a kind of quiet breakout game, finally stepping up in SEC play. That LSU defense was legit, probably the best defense we've seen all season. But like DR said, we couldn't hit a single free throw. Fulke not stepping up, it's just disappointing.
So, yeah, kind of talking about Will Wade a little bit. Like you said, DR, definitely a known cheater. Don't know why he still has a job. Don't know why more people aren't calling for his head. But the Vols, they shot 39% from the field, 25% from 3, but they only took 24. I think in that Texas Tech game, they took close to 40. I think it was like 6 of 40. So I'm pretty sure Rick's been telling them, like, hey, boys, like we don't need to pull as many of those because we ain't hitting them. But they actually, what kind of surprised me looking back at the stats, they shot 37 free throws. Hit 23, 62%, which obviously is not great. But, I mean, they took 37. That's a lot of free throws on the road, especially at LSU. Will Wade, he loves that havoc defense. He loves pressuring. He had his boys probably a step or two above the 3-point line, guarding us out that far. And we looked timid for a little bit. We looked like we didn't want to attack them at all. If the defense is attacking you, you got to attack back. But we played a little bit passive, stepped out of the way. They shot 47% from the field, LSU did, and shot 44 from three, 8 for 18. And for whatever reasons, Barnes' defenses aren't good at guarding the three. I don't know why, but they just aren't. But really the thing that struck me was that LSU had a big run in the second half. They went on a 22-10 run to blow it up by 19. But the Vols came back with their own run, 21-7. And it was a 2-possession game for a little bit with like about 2 minutes left. And then Kennedy Chandler had a turnover. They get a dunk, sealed the game at 73-66, and then obviously free throws and stuff. But, I mean, we were down 20, took it to 5, had a chance, and just snuffed it at the end. So,
yeah, I was kind of touched the point that I was going to make was just I think the biggest takeaway for me from that game was just the god-awful free throw shooting that we have. I mean, the problem with this team is like it's not the fact that that we can't get open looks or anything like that. I mean, we're drawing fouls. I mean, we're literally at the line 37 times. But I mean, when you're only making 62% of them, there's not a lot of games out there where you're going to stay competitive or even have a chance. And I really think like even if we just shot 70%, which I think should be at least reasonable, we would have stayed in that game. If not, possibly would have most likely won it.
I wanted to touch on just one thing. I know you talked about Folky earlier, I'm getting like caught up. I can't remember. Someone help me when Barnes like had that interview. Was it after LSU or after South Carolina when he called Folky out?
It was LSU.
Yeah.
Okay. So I pulled up some stuff on that. So most surprising player for me in that game was Euros because in 16 minutes, he shockingly scored 12 points. Fulkerson, who has played the longest in college basketball right now, had 3 points in 17 minutes of play. So I felt like what Rick Barnes said was 100% reasonable. I saw all over Twitter, people are like, well, don't blame it on Folky, but we got to have a leader. And if you've been there that long, you have got to show out. And other people were like, oh, well, COVID and this and COVID and that. I'm sorry, but if you're too weak to give it 100%, you probably should sit out that game, in my opinion. I don't know if anyone has anything to say about that, but that's kind of where my head was at.
I'm with you on that, Lo, because that quote was taken out of context. Like I listened to was Drew, Russ, and Barrett, and they were talking about that, how it was taken out of context. And Barnes said we need Folky, and he's right. I don't really get it. Euros did what I think we need. A lot of people need to be doing. We can't throw it in the ocean, like I said earlier. And Euros is just trying to get to the basket, get the easy shot. And I'm not a huge fan of watching Euros, but he's doing what needs to be done. Honestly, I wish more people would do it because we're on a cold streak, man. I mean, global warming's going on, but not with our freaking offense right now because we are cold as hell. Cold as hell. We're as cold as ice. I guess it's a better play. But I did like the way Euros played, and he knew he can't shoot it from outside, so he drove the lane for as good as he could do.
Yeah, pretty much I agree there. Coming into this season, you kind of expected John Fulkerson and Triple J to, step up and be those leaders because after how it ended last year, they took full role into saying they were going to be the leaders of this team. Yeah, Folky having a bad game. Josiah wasn't too hot. He did step it up in the South Carolina game this past yesterday, but, when you expect those guys to do good for being 4th year, 5th year, 6th year players, and you have Euros, who looks like a stick, just a giant stick going up there and putting his body on the line for the team when you least expect it, it's not good. So
I think another thing too is that early on, I can't remember if they did it late, but early on, LSU was doubling in the post. So as soon as we get a post entry, they double down and they'd crash. And I know that caused Olivier to have at least 1 or 2 early turnovers because he would try to either spin and rip through middle or do something else where just somebody came and doubled. But so when John gets doubled, he has to kick out to an open shooter for 3. But I mean, if you're LSU and you're looking at us, we're not hitting from 3. We have Fulkerson, who's been in the paint for 6 years. If you double down and you're daring us to shoot threes, you're daring us to shoot threes for a reason, and that's because we're not hitting them. So I mean, it makes sense. If you're going to take away our post player, then we have to kick out to guards. But like we said before, is that we've just struggled shooting the ball. So you're not even worried about it at that point. So why not double? So I mean, that probably is part of the reason why Fulke wasn't as effective as he normally is. But still, good players find a way.
I think the most frustrating thing for me is like the fact that, a couple of years ago when Fulke was just like at his prime with us, like he was always consistent within those like 8 to 10 foot jumpers within inside the paint. And now it just seems like that part of his game is just non-existent now. And, he's not really a big guy. He can't really muscle, a defender and anything like that. And so with the only thing of like that he can actually do, which is those mid-range jumpers, with that taken away, it leaves us completely we have no inside game whatsoever. And, I love Uros. I mean, the guy is just an absolute madman, and he will get at least 3 hard-ass fouls over there. But, he's awful. I mean, he's just not a good basketball player. And so I love the effort, everything. But, I mean, that's one thing Rick Barnes is going to have to find a way is to develop Huntley Hatfield quick or just get another big man because we're in deep trouble in that regard.
Yeah, it's tough to play inside out if we literally can't hit those shots, right? So I don't know what the answer is. I will say one thing that I was super envious about was that Eason for LSU, he came off the bench. He wasn't a starter, but he put in a lot of minutes and gave them 24 points against us. I wish that we had someone who would come off the bench and give us 24 points or even, 14. To have a player like that as like your 6th or 7th guy, that would be freaking awesome. I really don't know what else to say about it. I did not have a good feeling about that game going into it. Just playing at LSU is hard. I also thought that they were just underranked just in general. I thought they were pretty talented. Does anyone else have anything to add about this game?
Not necessarily the game, but Drew made mention of Fulke in the past. Do y'all think maybe that there's enough film out there in Fulke? Because it seems like his best year was when you didn't expect him, and now we depend on him more, and maybe he's got better defenders against him or something. I don't know. But I haven't seen, besides the Arizona game, and last year is a blur, but I don't remember much about that. But it's not the same Fulke, the SEC Player of the Year. What do y'all think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're pretty much right. As the years go on as a 6-year senior, I mean, let's be honest, John Fulkerson, he's not the top tierest big man in the world. It's taken some time for him to get to where he is as a player. And I think you hit it on the nail. Over time, these SEC teams are knowing that our, inside game is all going to be through Fulkerson because we don't have another big man on our roster that's going to be able to get down there and create some contact and get some shots. I mean, there's guys when I see Uros down there, undersized, just getting dominated. So when Fulke's not having it, it's non-existent at all. I think you pretty much are just right. People are getting used to it. He's not the biggest big man. He's tiny. He's always doing the hook shots. You never see Fulke really go like down and try to dominate right up on the glass. Like you never see it. So.
Yeah, and that's always been like the strength conditioning. They talk about Grant and Admiral, how much they change, but man, Fulke, he's just
not at all.
No, he looks like my basketball guy out here. He not because he's skinny, but he just hadn't changed the last 6 years.
I was going to say real quick, since you said that, I was going to mention this later, but I'll go ahead and mention it now because it makes sense. Sometimes people just can't lead or lead in the way. Not everyone is a leader. Not everyone has the personality to be a leader. Not everyone wants to be. Sometimes if you give people too much, then you expect too much from them, they get stressed out and they underdeliver. I don't know if that's the thing with him. None of this is like a Fulke hate at all, but I'm just saying, I mean, he's been there so long, and sometimes you can't, not everyone can lead. So I'm not saying he can't, but just in general, something to kind of think about.
Piggybacking off of that, if any of y'all follow the NBA, there's always an obsession with drafting younger players. So you always want to draft either the freshmen or the kids out of high school now if they go to G League or pros overseas or something like that. You always want to draft younger because that player has so much potential to become whatever it may be. But like y'all have said, 6 years down the line, we know what Fulke is. He's a back to the basket player who needs the ball on the low block and doesn't really expand his range much. And I think that's what hurts him, is because there was a time early this season where he caught the ball free throw line extended, and his defender's already back in the restricted area because he knows he's not going to shoot from there. And it's like, if you're not going to shoot a jumper free throw line extended, all your defender's going to do is pack the paint. Well, if we've got Santee and we've got Josiah and we've got Kennedy who want to attack the basket, and Zakai who want to attack the basket, who want to get in the lane, who want to drive and kick, you can't do that if there's an extra defender sitting there. So that to me is the biggest problem of when Fulke's on the floor, is that he just can't expand his range. But again, like y'all have said, there's no hate. Absolutely. That man's given 6 years of his life to our university. He's seen the lows when he started, and he's seen some super highs in the last 2-3 years. But I mean, I guess like for me personally, I would just love to see him have just a little bit of a jumper, a little bit of an elbow line extended jumper, because that'll open up so many driving lanes.
Lo, you had made mention about the leadership. I think it was before last year's team. Do you remember Barnes' comments? They talked about that. Like last year's team didn't have a leader. It's almost like it's flowed into this year, honestly. And again, this is the only time I'm going to say it. I'm not crapping on Fulke. That guy has given me some great memories. But it seems like Fulke or Triple J would step up and be a leader. But, I mean, Lo hit on it. Some people just they're not leaders. And honestly, I think that's the problem with this year's team like last year, is we don't have a leader out there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't see anyone that's – and I mean, again, this is all just from what I watch. I have no idea. I'm not practicing with him. But I don't see anyone that's really stepped up and led like we always compare to Grant Williams and Schofield. I mean, they were dominant from the moment they stepped on the court. They were over there in each other's face. Hey, this is what you messed up here. This is, and they were doing it in a positive way. And I don't see anything like that. And I didn't see it last year. And I think that may be part of the problem. But I mean, you've got to find the right guy to lead. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. That was kind of rough. Bad memory.
Terrible.
Does anyone have anything else before we go on to last night's game?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So last night we played South Carolina. I thought it was a slow start. We only scored 30 in the first half. I know free throws are going to be talked about. We shot 44% from the free throw line, but we still won. So let's just hear everyone's first thoughts about that.
Well, this kind of flows with what Lo you just said. You're talking about people coming off the bench. I think it was you, but we thought Powell was going to be that guy. He didn't shoot the ball against South Carolina, and this is an interesting stat from Trey Wallace. He's only had 8 shots in the last 67 minutes. And, that's not what we thought we were getting with him. I know a lot of preseason hype. I've heard several on Fox Sports Knoxville talking about. I honestly thought some of them, he was our best player. And, man, he doesn't even look like the same player out there. I mean, I'm glad we covered the spread and all that, so I'm happy with that. I just don't think South Carolina's very good. And I kind of think like how Will Wade has Barnes' number. I think Barnes has South Carolina coach's number, honestly, Frank Martin. But it started out slow. I'm not going to lie. I lean more towards the negative. I thought it was going to get bad, and I thought, oh, are you kidding me? We're going to lose this game. Because South Carolina, Vandy, Missouri, and Georgia, I expect to beat the hell out of them when we play them. And so I got a little worried, but, maybe that'll get us off going. I will say this. We have not scored 70 in league play yet, and I think we're going to have to do that Saturday. So that worries me. That worries me.
Yeah, pretty much. I also missed this game too, but I did go back and look at the stats. Yeah, it's bad. Um, the the free throws is just awful. I think Dr. said earlier we couldn't hit anything in the ocean, like just going backwards, put blindfolded straight. I don't know what it is with the free throws or what they have to do. I know they just say keep on shooting, it'll fall, but it was just awful. What I did like though was you did have Vescovi having 14 points, Triple J. He stepped up, had a nice quiet double double in the game. Hit that 1 3 I saw in the highlights, like over the defender, just straight yammed him. So maybe it's good that Triple J had a good game, like an awakening game. I think it's probably his first this season that he's kind of stepped up and been that presence on the court. And as we were talking about it earlier, that's what we need right now is those guys finally clicking. So if we can get Triple J and Folky, both back in sync, I think that could be a big part for this team going forward because they need a leadership.
Definitely, and I agree with everything that's already been said. The interesting thing is every shooting percentage we had was higher than South Carolina. So we shot 44 from the field, they shot 35. We shot 33 from three, they shot 32. And we shot 44% from free throw, but they shot 35. So I mean that's wild. But I mean, in this game, it got it done. And I know we've kind of like said our remarks about Tennessee, but let me give a positive. Our defense is phenomenal. Like it absolutely is. We contest well. People hit jumpers for whatever reason. People always hit jumpers on us, but we're there. We contest. We play hard. That's the reason. I mean, we were down 19 in that LSU game, but we weren't done. And like I said, we brought it to a 5-point game. But I mean, South Carolina ended up with 23 turnovers, and we had 11 steals and 4 blocks. That's exceptional. And the three at the end of the half, I think, was huge because that game was 27-24, and it looked like just a back and forth affair. JJJ hits that three, and then it blows up into like an 18-5 run, and then goes up. What is that? 45-29. And that basically sealed the game coming out of the half right there. But like you said, Dr., I thought it was interesting that JP didn't get any shot attempts. If I was him, I mean, he's shooting 39% from three on the season. If that's him, I'm running him off staggers. I'm running him off pin downs. I'm doing whatever I can to get him open because he's the one who has proven he can shoot the ball consistently from deep. So if anything, if he's in, I'm running plays for 24, getting him looks. If anything, it'll draw attention. But I mean, like you said, it was a good game. The first half was back and forth. Second half, we took over, controlled it, and an easy win for the Vols.
Yeah, I mean, I agree just about everything mostly everyone said here. Like, I mean, wasn't the best performance by any stretch of the imagination, but we covered the spread, won by 20. I mean, my biggest concern is shooting 11 for 25 on the line. I mean, it's just it's getting ridiculous. Like, I mean, we can't even make half our free throws. And I think the one other big concern I have is that, Zakai, did have 11 points and that was great. But like, I'm honestly starting to believe now that I think Sakai might be a better point guard for this team than Kennedy Chandler. I mean, Chandler only scored 8 points, and it's really concerning for me because this South Carolina team is not very good. I mean, they lost by 25 points to Coastal Carolina this year, so like they're awful in that sense. And like if Kennedy Chandler can only drop 8 against a defense like this has me really concerned going into Saturday against Kentucky. But overall, though, I mean, like Brando said, nice little double-double from Triple J. Folky got 10 points as well. It really looks like that anytime that these guys get double digits in scoring, that, like, we more, I think 95% of the time actually wind up winning the game. So we really rely on those two on showing up or at least having some sort of production. But, yeah, I'm, like, very concerned about Kennedy Chandler going forward, at least offensively.
Yeah, you guys killed that. Alex, I was going to touch on defense a little bit, but I like that we held them to under 50 points. But like Drew said, I mean, they just really aren't a good basketball team. So I don't understand why we couldn't have just totally demolished them. One reason I don't know why we can't really hit our shots, but I have a theory, and I wonder like, is it because that our defense is so good and they play so aggressively that by the time they get back, they just can't hit their shots? I don't know if that's even like a reasonable thought, but I'm just like, sometimes they play so hard on defense, they get back, they rush it, and they just seem like they take the wrong shot. Another thing I wanted us to talk about was the lineups that we are putting out. Sometimes I just don't feel like they are the greatest together. I would kind of adjust some things, but again, I'm not the head coach. But I just kind of wanted to pick everyone's brains and see if you guys think he's putting the right lineups out there at the right times, or if he can mix it up. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
Honestly, that's the thing with Barnes is his rotations and lineups. It seems like we'd have it, I wouldn't say perfected, I don't know, figured out by now. But honestly, if nobody's hitting a damn shot, it's probably hard to figure out a lineup. Like when you're going through a matchup, again, when you have weaker teams like South Carolina, because, Drew's right, South Carolina sucks. But like Kentucky or okay, let's not say Kentucky, LSU. Going to that game, you knew their defense was going to be good, our defense was going to be good, but they won, but better offense. But in Barnes' head, it's thinking like, well, I don't know, Victor Bailey, he may do good in practice, but he couldn't find the basket if it was sitting in front of him, it don't seem, this year. And I don't get it because he came in as a really good three-point shooter. I don't know. I wish we'd figured out. I wish we had figured out before we go into Rupp Saturday. I don't know. Not to be repetitive, I really don't know what's going on with this team. I don't know if they're not taking the Barnes' coaching this year, or, you said talking about defense playing too hard. I don't know if they stepped on a crack, broke their mama's back. I don't know. But they're not even fun to watch, man. Like, I don't even want to get on that tangent, but damn, we don't have anything figured out. Don't seem. We look like we should be like, if it was NFL, if it was preseason, the first game, like we're still trying to figure things out, and that scares the hell out of me.
Oh yeah, pretty much everything you just said, DR, I agree with. Credit to Victor Bailey for, I think, hitting one of his first threes of the season, though, in that South Carolina game late. I was actually proud to see that in the highlights. But I think defense might have a thing to play with it. Obviously, when you're looking at a Rick Barnes basketball team, defense is one of the first things that comes to mind when his philosophy of having a team. But I think it's also just a mixture of just guys not hitting shots. The guys that you brought in, expecting to hit those shots, Victor Bailey, Justin Powell, they're just not falling. And, like going into a game like Kentucky, that's scary because Kentucky is going to be just another game like LSU. It's not going to be South Carolina where you can have a slow start, or where we played Ole Miss and not score for like 5 or 10 minutes. Like, you're going to have to go into these games and start off early. Like Kentucky, they're getting better and better each game. So it's just something that worries me. Lineup wise, I think we could use more size to start off with, because we're getting really like out lengthened. You have like Zakai Ziegler, Kennedy Chandler out there against other point guards that are like 6'5", 6'6", and I think to get our offense moving and how they have to get it passing around, they don't have that opportunity. So I don't know if that has to do with the slow starts or the defense, but just something they can, maybe try to find and work on, find a main guy to put this offense through.
Absolutely. And Lo, I think you raise a good point by saying the focus on defense affects us on the offensive end. And the reason I think that is because if you look at the free throw numbers from LSU and South Carolina on the season, they're averaging 73% from the field. And they not from the field, from free throw. And they shot 63% against us. South Carolina shoots 67%, 65, from free throw, and they shot 35 against us. So I believe when we pay so much attention and so much effort on defense, I do think it affects us offensively the same way that it affects other teams offensively. Like, it takes a little bit of our percents down, our rhythm, our flow of offense. I think that does affect it. But Rick Barnes, he's never ran typically through one player, his offenses. He always runs his like egalitarian approach, where he wants to share the ball, he wants to have constant motion, and he wants to have everybody touch it and then get the best look from that. And that works when you have teams with multiple options, such as, to go back to it, Jordan Bone, Jordan Bowden, Grant, Admiral. Heck, Kyle Alexander as a fifth option really is not bad. He can hit a little jump hook. He can hit a little 15-footer. Like that. That is what you need on those types of teams. On this team, so let's go back to the LSU game. When LSU is doubling John Fulkerson and you're taking that part out and Josiah is not hitting threes, there's two people out of that offense by committee that you're taking out. And that puts a lot of pressure on Kennedy, on Santee, on whoever that fifth option is, Olivier sometimes. But like you said, Euro stepped up. But for Rick Barnes' offenses to work and to work effectively, you have to have everybody on that floor as a threat, ready to score at any point in time the ball gets to them. If one piece is down, it puts a lot of pressure on the other four. And I think that's why we go into the scoring droughts. I don't know for sure, but that's just my take. But another thing is the rotations. It's hard to play Zakai and Kennedy and Santee all at the same time because that takes your backcourt height to an average of like maybe 6 foot, and we'll get bullied and out rebounded. But I mean, if you want offensive firepower and you want shooting, I guess that's what you do. But to me, I think you need more minutes for Justin Powell going forward and to incorporate him more into the rotation, but to the offense, and just try to find him a jumper and get it going.
I think one of the things for us is like we're really handcuffed in the sense of like that we just have zero depth on the 4 and 5 position with Urosh and Kamwa and Folke and even Triple J. For me, like I find it kind of surprising that like, you know, that Rick Barnes never tried to go like what Bruce Pearl did all those years ago when we didn't really have that much depth in the 5 position by playing 4 guards and then a big man. And like with this team, I mean, this team is so good defensively. I mean, Kennedy, Chandler, and Zakai, even as small as they are, they could defend, I mean, mostly up top, mostly just about anyone. And I heard a fascinating stat a couple weeks ago at the Alabama game where after 5 seconds on the shot clock alone, Tennessee's chances of scoring goes down by 75%. And I just feel like, you know, just having with Zakai and Kennedy and Santi at 3, and then maybe potentially having, I mean, hell, just go for it. Just have Justin Powell there at 4 because Triple J is completely useless for the first 15 minutes of the game anyway. That just go for it at that front. I mean, we have nothing to lose at this point because this lineup of Santi and Triple J and Folke and Kamwa, it's not working. It's just, they got to do something about it in that sense.
Drew, I absolutely love that idea because I went to the Arizona game where we upset them, and ever since then, we have been so lackluster with energy and just totally all over the board. I just don't, it doesn't even look like the same team. I don't understand how we can be so sporadic and up and down. I would have figured like DR said earlier, like we should 100% have this figured out by now. We should have like our go-to guys. We should be able to hit freaking foul shots like I could in middle school ball. I really do not understand what has happened, but I hope they turned around. I'm not trying to be super negative. It's so hard to watch sometimes when you see all this potential and then they get together and then it just doesn't produce the best result. But with all that kind of negative rant being said, we still won last night. So a win is a win, even if it was ugly. I always say that. Does anyone have anything else on South Carolina?
Drew, what was that stat again? If we don't score within the first, 5 seconds? What did you say?
Jimmy Dykes said on that Alabama game like a couple weeks ago that like if we don't score within 5 seconds of like from the 30 shot clock, that like our chances of scoring go down by 80%. And like I started thinking about it the other day, and I was at that Arizona game too. And one of the things that we got was that we would get those steals and then we would go on a 3-1, fast break and would always wind up getting a bucket. Well, when we try to play these, try to have guys set up and try to run plays, I mean, we're always running the clock to like 3 or 4 seconds left. And then, either Triple J or Zakai is shooting an absolute brick on that backboard.
So that seems to me like that's on Barnes, don't it? To y'all, I mean, like he doesn't know what play to call, or maybe that's a Chandler thing. A point guard's your quarterback of the offense. I mean that's really concerning.
I want to play devil's advocate real quick because a lot of people blame that on Barnes. But one thing that I personally feel like may happen, which I could be wrong, but I'm devil's advocate. So what it seems to me is like with Barnes teams, especially when we don't have a true leader, it seems like they don't ever control the pace of the game. They just allow the other team to set it and then they follow. And when they do that, it seems like a complete basket case. No one is in control. We do a fast break down the court, take the worst shot possible, or we just run the clock all the way down to the last second or have a turnover. No one really forms the play to begin with, just from what I feel like.
You're right. That's probably why Auburn's our daddy. They kind of play just at will, and we can't keep it within 20 with them. That's a really good point. That stat blows my mind, Drew. Though that's insane.
Yeah, that stat blows my mind. And going back to how what Lowe said, we're far in the season where we don't have a guy that we can just run our offense through. And I think back to the Rick Barnes quote last year when he blamed Jaden Springer and Keon not getting started early enough because of COVID. But here we are in a regular year, what seems to be regular, and we still don't have a guy that's running through this offense or being the lead guy or getting our younger guys locked in. And how Drew said, I trust Zakai to go out there and put the ball in the basket more than I do Kennedy right now. He's going down, maybe 5 inches shorter, but he's going and blowing by these D1 defenders, and it's wild to me.
I'll defend us a little bit more and say that I believe you don't really know who your team is until you get in the thick of conference play, because you can schedule cupcakes all day in non-conference and not know anything about yourself, but you feel good because you're beating people by 30 and 40. But I think you find yourself in conference play. But also, I do think that some of it's coaching, and his egalitarian system approach I'm not a fan of, but it's what he's done, and he's had historical success because he's obviously got a super high winning percentage and he wins regular season stuff. Granted, postseason stuff is different, but I think that some things happen organically, as in you find that player at the end of the shot clock who you're like, okay, let's get him the ball. He's going to get us a bucket, or let's get him the ball. He'll at least make a play. And right now, you're right. Like, everybody's right. We don't have that, and we're still looking for that option. And hopefully, in the middle of conference play somewhere, it becomes somebody. I don't care who it is. I just want to be able, with 7 seconds on the shot clock, I want to be able to throw it to somebody and be like, okay, I know he's going to score right here. But we don't have that, and I think that is our biggest issue, because late in the LSU game, actually on the possession that kind of sealed it for us, is Kennedy gets it at the top of the key with 5 seconds left, and there's 3 of our players on the perimeter and 1 sitting on the post, and they're just watching, and they're just looking and hoping he does something. And what does he do? He gets blocked because they're packing the paint and he tried to drive. But I mean, is that his fault for trying to make a play, but the team isn't like moving around trying to like set him up too? I don't know. But like y'all have said, I hope we find that number one clear-cut option to be like, hey, look, we need a bucket. You're the one that's going to get it for us. You get it. Let's go back on defense.
I was just going to say and jump in, but I think that guy, it has to be Kennedy Chandler. I hope it has to be Kennedy Chandler, because when, his recruitment coming in, all the highlight reels you saw, the game winners that Kennedy Chandler hit, big shots, big play moments. He was known coming in to be a clutch player, one of the top point guards in the nation. And at this level right now, as you said, he's driving in, getting packed, getting outscored by the point guard that was brought in to make him better. The whole reason we went and took Zakai was to have more competition around Kennedy Chandler. And I think that guy has to be Kennedy that steps up for this team, because even as a freshman, he's, a quote unquote lottery pick, and he has to play like it for this team to be successful going into conference play.
I think it's like what Lowe said earlier, though, like going back all to this, that like there's no lack of leadership on this team. And, like one of the things for me is like my probably favorite Tennessee sports team of all time, that Elite Eight team with Chisholm and Bobby Mays. And the thing is that Bobby Mays and Chisholm, those guys were leaders. Like you knew that like if there was a game down the line, you could give it to Wayne Chisholm, that he was going to one way or the other find a way to make it happen. And I think that's we have no identity on offense. Like Santi's been great for us, but I mean, I'll just be honest. I just can't see him as being our number one guy on relying when the game's down the line. And it's like what Brandon said, like, at the end of the day, the only player where from an athleticism standpoint, the only guy that could really, fill that void is Kennedy Chandler. And like, will he? I mean, I don't see it. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he shows me that on Saturday, but it's a huge, huge issue that we have in the middle of conference play, which is not a good problem to have by any means.
Definitely. You guys totally killed that. One thing that I want to touch on is just imagine if every one of our starters played with the same energy and mindset that Ziegler did. I mean, he's literally fearless. Like he doesn't give a damn if someone's a foot taller than him. It may cause a little bit of turnovers, but I swear, like his fire and energy, just when I see him hit the court, I'm happy regardless because I know he's going to give it 100%. And if we had that same energy, that same mindset with every single person on the floor every time, that would be a totally different game, in my opinion. Not shitting on anyone by any means, but I don't know. Ziegler's my favorite, so I just got to give him a shout out.
He's mine too, and I wonder if he plays like that, and everybody needs to, but if he plays like that because he knows he's the little guy out there, so he tries to overcompensate. Because I do love watching him play, and honestly, he's going to end up being a fan favorite, kind of like Fulke, because he's going to be here for next 3 to 5 years, honestly. And I think it was Drew that's talked about that. Like, honestly, we look better with him out there at point than Chandler. Chandler's obviously the better athlete, but that doesn't always, matter, I guess you could say. But I do love that little guy. he is fun as hell to watch.
Oh yeah, I think Zakai Ziegler might, he's going to be a fan favorite for sure, but he honestly is going to develop into a great player at that because just in the Alabama game that Kennedy Chandler missed, Zakai stepped up. He was maybe a little foul hungry and, a little aggressive, and that's something he will have to work on his defense, being so small compared to other people. He has to play aggressive like that. But, I mean, over time, he was stepping up in that game, and I think if Kennedy Chandler does, leave after 1 year, Zakai, he's only going to get better in that sense of a player, and it's just he has such a bright future.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, I'm all for Kennedy. I'm gonna respectfully disagree that I think Zakai is better, just because Kennedy has better shooting splits across the board except for free throws. I think Kennedy's shooting around like less than 70, but Zakai's got him at 78. But even then, Kennedy's still got better field goal and 3-point percentage because Zakai's only hitting 30%. And again, that's not, like y'all said, that's not to hate on Zakai. I believe in Kennedy, and I want to see him succeed so bad because of what he did when we went to Colorado. I mean, that man dropped 30 and basically willed us to that win. Like he hit a step back jumper late just to seal it and just to put one on him one more time. I have full faith in Kennedy. Like has been said, I really think our game outcome depends on Josiah and Fulke. If Josiah plays well, like he did against South Carolina, he had a double-double. Granted, it is South Carolina, but he has a double-double, we win by 20. He has 3 points against LSU, we lose by 12. Now, I'm not saying that his points sway the whole game, but the way that he affects games by getting timely buckets here and there, getting big rebounds, especially if we go small, he has to be the one that rebounds. I think that our success depends on him, and obviously Fulke staying involved. All he's got to do is average about 12 and 8. Same thing for Josiah. If he averages like anywhere from like 10 to 14 and 6 to 8 boards, I think we're successful in every game.
Yeah, and I want to say this. Me saying that about Ziegler, I believe in Kennedy, but I believe in the Lord. But sometimes they both frustrate me. So I'm just going to put that out there.
I agree. I don't not believe in Chandler, but I just love seeing Ziegler out there. I just think, honestly, they can both be out there together. I don't know. I don't give a damn. Figure out the lineup. I don't know. Figure it out. I'm going nuts.
Yeah, it's not me either. Just trying to talk bad on Chandler, but since Colorado, I think his best game was against LSU, and like I said earlier, it was a quiet 19 points. But I think the key is going to be how he plays against a team like Kentucky this upcoming weekend, because that's going to be key. It's going to have to be Kennedy that steps up. Obviously, John Fulkerson and Triple J's play is going to matter. Everyone's play is going to matter because, like Alex said, this offense, it has to run through everybody. And this is how it works. It can't just be one guy, but it does start with Kennedy Chandler. And if he can put the ball in the basket and get down there against better competition than what he's used to.
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, for Saturday, they got to set the tone early. One of the things that Kennedy did a great job at the Arizona game and the Colorado game was that we were able to set the tone and set the tempo up within 3 or 4 minutes of that game starting. And that's the one thing that we have been missing a lot. Hell, especially in that Ole Miss game. Oh my God. We got to find a way within the first couple minutes of the game to be able to just go out and get buckets and just set just this aggressive tone early on. If we can't, we're not going to grind out opponents, and we're sure as hell not going to grind out Kentucky.
Yeah, I am terrified for Saturday. I hope they prove me wrong. Let's see. Anything else like in review before we go to our next topic, which I feel like might be a little bit controversial? Final thoughts? All good? All right. So after the big LSU debacle, Vol Twitter basically exploded. Half of the people wanted to fire Barnes. Half of the people are like, he needs to retire. The other half are like, it's not his fault. We've already all kind of touched on it some, but I feel like it needs to be addressed. Rick Barnes, what is the deal? What is everyone's thoughts? Do you think that we should replace him? Why or why not? Let's start there.
This is definitely touchy. So I am a noted Bruce Pearl sheep. I think Barnes gets a lot of heat because we look at our ex-girlfriend, what they're doing at Auburn, and they're kicking everybody's ass. And they're fun to watch, man. Like, I know we're going to lose, but let's be fun to look when we lose. I don't want to fire Barnes. I do think that, and I've heard this discussed a lot on the radio, I think we've peaked under him, honestly. That Sweet 16 team that we had. Look, we go into overtime against Purdue and our best player is on the bench. I know he's in foul trouble, but stuff like that worries me. And Barnes is not known for a tournament coach. Hell, he had Kevin Durant. He didn't even make it to Sweet 16. I don't want to fire him, but I do kind of wonder. He stabilized the program, and it's in a much better position. It makes me wonder, not saying we turned into Georgia basketball, but you know how Georgia got rid of Mark Richt? And everybody's like, well, he's getting 10 wins a year. But what would happen if they got somebody to go to the next level? And I kind of wonder that with Tennessee basketball, honestly. I don't want to fire him, but, if he retires next few years, I'm not going to be upset either. And I honestly, once we move past this, I want to hear what everybody thinks about who we want after Barnes.
Yeah, I think obviously Vol Twitter exploded because I was at work, but when I did check my timeline after the game and I just, seeing the group chat and y'all's reactions, it's tough when you lose like that and you're expecting, year after year that it's going to take that next level under the program. But like DR said, I think pretty much we've peaked under Barnes that we can, but I don't know if that's a bad thing because all my life I never knew Tennessee of being like a powerhouse basketball program, but as I've grown up, I've seen them every year in a tournament making, maybe only to the Sweet 16, but you're getting 20 plus wins a season, you're getting into the Sweet 16, And when you talk about replacing a coach like that with a legacy like that and over 700 wins, you know, it's not surefire that you're going to find a coach that's even going to get remotely close to that. And, you know, I don't know who we'd go after, because you look at Texas when they fired their coach and went after the young guy and got rid of Barnes, and it's not really worked for them. I'm just scared of getting too tired of where we're at now and then replacing Barnes with a guy that can't do remotely what he can, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, definitely. And one thing I want to keep in mind is, so the Vols rank number 2 on adjusted defensive efficiency on Pomeroy. I don't know if y'all are into advanced stats, but I'm a numbers nerd. But guess who ranks number 1 in adjusted defensive efficiency? LSU. So our offensive struggles against them make sense, like they do. LSU is always good defensively, especially at home. They've got a super rough crowd that wants to get involved. They want to get into the game. They're just itching for a moment where the game blows open and they can get involved. Will Wade always has them playing well at home. So I guess I understand the loss at LSU more. And back to the comment, Vol Twitter always blows open when Tennessee loses at any point in time. If one negative thing happens, it's always the end of the world. But to me, when you're gauging, or I guess grading a coaching hire, and you want to understand, do we fire him? Do we not? I always look at why we hired somebody. And I think that why we hired Rick Barnes was to right the ship from Donnie Tyndall, first off, Donnie Tyndall, and then Quanzo Martin, who we wanted fired midway through the season. And then he takes a hot streak into a Sweet 16 run and then leaves. But I mean, I think we hired Coach Barnes to right the ship, make us nationally relevant, and just make us stable for the next guy. I never thought that Rick Barnes was the guy to win us a national championship. I thought he was the guy who would make us a B+ job over a C+ or a B- where we have been. So right now, I think Rick's just kind of cooling it, doing at least what I wanted him to do. I think we just stand pat a little bit longer, show that we can commit to a coach long term, let him keep us in the top 20, the top 15, and then when he's ready to retire, or if something astronomically bad happens, we get rid of him and then we look for a replacement then. DR, like you said, I want Bruce back so bad. I'm sorry. I do. I never wanted him to leave in the first place. I think he got fired for bullcrap, especially after we see how the NCAA has defended both Will Wade and Penny Hardaway. Bruce got fired for wanting to feed a recruit, and they're shelling out thousands of dollars, and it's all fine and dandy, whatever. I want Bruce back if Barnes gets fired, but again, he's made his home in Auburn now. So, but final offer, I don't want him gone yet. And we wait until there's a can't miss prospect.
This is one of the most frustrating things I have about this fan base more than anything else, is that we lose our minds anytime we lose a big game like that. And which don't get me wrong, I was Maynardville mad, I was Farragut furious, Powell pissed off about last Saturday. There's no doubt about that. But we knew going in that we weren't going to win this game. We don't win against LSU. We don't ever win in Baton Rouge. It's we knew that. And we also knew, at the end of the day, Tennessee basketball is not the same, tier as Kentucky, as Michigan State, as Duke. We're at our peak right now, which I'm totally fine with. I'm more than happy to have a NCAA tournament team every single year. And at the end of the day, we're 11-4. We're still a top 25 team. People just got to pump the brakes, got to take a deep breath, and just got to realize it's going to be all right. I don't see any reason why we need to fire Barnes. He keeps on bringing good, talented players. Every year we're putting out NBA players. Even during Bruce's days, we didn't even do that, with the exception of a couple of years with Tobias Harris and others. But we just got to relax. He's done a phenomenal job given the circumstances, and ride it out. And honestly, just for the hell of it, just to see his fan base explode, I would want us to go after Will Wade.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Okay, so you guys pretty much said almost everything. First, Drew, you said it. I wasn't that pissed off because I expected us to lose at LSU. I had no reason to believe that we were going to win that game to begin with. I log on to Twitter, I see an absolute shit show, so I proposed the question. I was like, okay, so everyone wants to fire Barnes. Who do you want? The most popular two answers were Bruce Pearl and Kim English. When I ask people why, they say, well, Rick Barnes can recruit, but he can't develop them. But as Drew just said, look at how many dudes have been to the freaking NBA. We have so many former Vols in the NBA. And my whole thing is, I also agree with Alex. I think he developed a culture here. He redeveloped and elevated the culture here. He elevated the expectations. And he is going to retire at some point. And I just don't see any reason why we would fire him now. I mean, the second, if we did, everyone would expect that, oh, we fired Barnes, whoever we bring in, we're going to make it to the Elite Eight now. Or not everyone, but most people are just so unrealistic. No, we'd be in the same boat, if not less. We'd have to probably wait 2-3 years. We might even miss out on the tournament. Like, there's just so many things. And you see in basketball all the time. I mean, Texas Tech, look at the run that they just went on. I mean, it's not easy, especially at this level. So I don't know. I definitely wouldn't fire him. I think he's hilarious. I say just let him keep doing what he's doing to an extent. But for this season, we can't just keep repeating the same things and expect a different result. We're going to have to try something else, even if it's out of the box, and roll with it.
Nate Boy 921, excuse me, he had a point. He said, we just paid him all that money to not go to UCLA. He ain't going anywhere. Do y'all think that some of this is because of that UCLA thing? To me, I don't really care, because I complain all the time. Like, Butch Jones was as fake can be. At least Barnes was honest with us back then. What do y'all think about that with the fan base? Do y'all think that kind of adds fuel to the fire? Because I've seen it out there. Like, people bring up old tweets and about him wanting to be at UCLA. I mean, I get it. Every coach we have is Tennessee's not their dream job. People need to get over that.
Yeah, I think you're pretty much right. He was straight up honest with us. He was like, if the money was right, I was leaving, and like, just straight up, that should tell fans a lot. Like, he openly said it. If the money was right, he was leaving. But also, I think it has to do with, you just lost. I think Lowe mentioned his name, Kim English. I wonder how big his departure is hurting this team offensively. Because when you look back last year with Keon Johnson, Jaden Springer, he was always that offensive-minded guy that was drawing up a play when we were in close games to hit that game-winning shot or have, extend the game into overtime. And, I think some of that has to do with Barnes being content with where he's at and what he's got here at Tennessee. But also, you just lost an offensive-minded coach. And I don't know if he's like, the new assistant. I don't know if it's like a comfortability thing yet, but it's not last year when you had a guy like Kim English that was an assistant really putting his hands on the team and controlling those guys offensively.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that our issues run a lot deeper than just one single thing. And I think you can't really just be like, okay, this is our problem. If we fix it, we're this kind of team. We're an Elite Eight team. We're a Final Four team. Because let me just throw in another thing that I don't think we have this year is a rim protector. For the last 2 years, we had Yves Pons regularly making SC top 10 because he blocked a shot into the sixth row. And then before him, we had somebody who would quietly do it in Kyle Alexander. And also, like Lowe said, Barnes develops players so well that when we get a 3-star, I'm like, okay, that's fine. He'll be solid. Like, he'll produce for us. And because, who were 3-stars? Admiral, Grant, Jordan, both Bowden and Bone. Lamonte was a 3-star. Kyle Alexander was a 3-star. Maybe he might have even been a 2. But, when we get those players, I'm like, Barnes will take care of them. Barnes will make them NBA players. So that's another reason why I'm kind of like on the Barnes, you should stay fence. But I mean, the issues in this team are deep. There are definitely things to fix, and I would like Barnes to fix them. Definitely. Will he? I don't know, but I guess like back to the original question, the UCLA thing. I'm always for transparency, and I'm always for honesty. I would rather him tell us exactly what's going on, so I know the state of things, instead of giving us PR answers and then us figuring things out later through a tweet or a dropped headline from like Rocky Top News or whatever it may be. I would rather know exactly how everybody feels in every moment versus finding through third or fourth party.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree with Alex, but going back to the UCLA thing as well. I mean, I didn't have an issue with it. I mean, people got to remember, like, UCLA might not be that big of attractive a job now, but like when he was growing up, like UCLA was the college basketball program. I mean, and for him, like that job still holds that same value. Now, others may have not seen that, but like, I'd rather have him be honest, be like, yeah, I mean, like they just didn't offer enough money, than as opposed to Konzo just quietly just taking a plane over to Berkeley, California to take another. So like, we can't have it both ways. I'd rather have the man be honest with us. If he really didn't want to be here, he would have not accepted that extension. And I think the least we could do is just write out his contract. I think he has another 2 years left in his contract and part our ways from then on out.
Fully agree with everyone. I am as honest as they come. It actually gets me in trouble. So when I see someone that actually is not sitting out there shooting the shit for once and is honest, I'm like, I love that. Thank you, because that's so rare. Didn't bother me at all. I think DR has said it on this podcast before. It's like if you freaking win the lottery, we've talked about it whenever what's his name didn't come back to finish coaching the last game. It's like, well, here's your few $1 million, or you can come back to work and you're still going to get your $1 million. It's like, screw it, I'm leaving with my millions of dollars. Like, it's the same thing. He's just like, well, if they paid me this much, I'm going to go. That's what it is. I love it. I actually liked the answer. It didn't bother me a bit. It's like, all right, well, I don't have a dog in the race. He's either going or we're going to pay him enough to stay, right? But of course, most people just went all wild about it. I don't know. Does anyone have any last thoughts on the Barnes thing? It seemed like all of us were pretty much on the same page when it came down to it.
I just have a question on when did he sign that extension? Does anybody know?
I think it was after the whole entire UCLA debacle, because he got his pay raised up to, I think, $5.5 million a year, and it was like a 3-year extension to his original contract. So I think it ends in 2023, but I'm not obviously too entirely sure about that.
Because I was wondering, because if it was right after the Sweet 16 run where we went 31-6, we were number one for 8 weeks. I mean, we beat Gonzaga. And we beat Kentucky a few times. Went to the SEC championship game, got waxed by Auburn. But arguably, that Kentucky win in the semis was bigger than that Auburn game in the championship. Whatever, that's a different debate. But I mean, it makes sense why he got the extension. You know, like I guess in my opinion, it makes sense because he had one of the best seasons Tennessee basketball's ever had. Was riding a high and got paid for it. So I mean, I think he deserved the extension then, but
one of our listeners said in the feed 2 years ago is when he signed it.
It was 2 years ago. But that's the thing though, is like people forget as well. Like, you know, Tom Izzo is considered one of the highest paid coaches in college basketball, and Michigan State has been, they've been mediocre the last couple of years. So like, I understood the extension. He deserved it after that 31-6 season. That's arguably probably maybe the second best season in Tennessee basketball history. So, it's just how basketball is sometimes. You're just going to have little, down seasons, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see because I think what was it, Fulmer before he got the extension that he was ready to let him walk or something like that. So and you said he has about 2 years left on the contract. Danny White being new on the job, I think it'll be interesting to see how he takes his approach with the whole Barnes thing after his contract does run out, where Tennessee basketball as a whole is at that point. Because if you're on the trajectory and you have a coach out there that's young-minded that can maybe get Tennessee to the next level, and you're Danny White, a guy that banks on your career on young coaches and having them as a proving point, like Nate Oates at Buffalo, getting guys like Heupel, Scott Frost when they're young, unknown names. It'll be interesting to see what he does as athletic director here.
You don't have to go into detail, but if Barnes retired tonight, who would you want? Reasonable, because unreasonable, I want Bruce Pearl, but reasonable, I want to hear everybody's answer.
I don't even know where to start, really, because I'm not that well informed on college coaches. I would have to depend on Vol Twitter to give me the names and the scoops on people, because that's what we do best with coaches. But I think the name that we're familiar with that Lowe did mention earlier would be Kim English, and seeing what he's done at George Mason. I feel like he might know the area well by now if he was to come back. The thing is he ready for that kind of job? I don't know. But me just talking about how Danny White likes those young up-and-coming guys, Kim English, a guy that's well-known and loved around Tennessee after his time here offensively, I think it'd be worth a shot. But then again, I'm sure there's a lot more coaches out there that could be better than Kim English. I have no idea, but I would say Kim English. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I also don't know, because one, I'm not looking for Barnes replacements right now, and it's also I guess it's hard to know like who's actually interested in leaving their current job until you hear a rumor about something, and then you're like, oh, let me follow this little rabbit hole. But like Brando said, George Mason with Kim English, I mean, they had that big win back in November over Maryland on the road while Maryland was ranked. You know exactly what you're getting with Kim English because he's a Barnes disciple. He's been around the program. His personality, like what he's going to do, that he'll have a good, clean program, good stuff like that. But I'm all for Pearl. I'm sorry.
Just to see like Vol Twitter explode Will Wade, I would just love to see the reaction. I feel like it would be even bigger than Shiano's Sunday in some aspects, just as far as the reaction goes. Realistically, I would honestly say either Rob Lanier, who was the former assistant under Barnes after Grant Williams' Schofield year from Georgia State. I just feel like with the connections he has over there in Atlanta as far as recruiting goes and the job that he's done in that Panthers program, at least in the Sun Belt Conference, which in my opinion is a very underrated conference, he's done a decent job there. And if not him, honestly, Steve Forbes from Wake Forest, I think would be a great hire as well.
Drew, you took mine. See, everybody's talking about Kim English. Like, to me, I would rather have Rob Lanier, but my number one choice is Steve Forbes. He was here with Pearl, and if you can't have Dr. Pepper, let's get Mr. Pibb. And Steve Forbes, man, and he's older. That's what I was looking at now. He's 56 right now, but I don't really think you can judge him on Wake Forest because of where he's at. But that would be my choice, but I love that Drew said Rob Lanier because I really think he's going to be a damn good coach, and I would much rather have him over Kim English right now because, Kim English, they beat Maryland, but then they lost like 5 or 6 straight after that. And I like Kim English. He was a great asset to our program. And one of the people that's watching our live feed talked about that, how we went down since he's left. But I do think he would be a better choice, Rob Lanier, than Kim English, but number one, if you can't have Pearl, I want old Stevie Boy Forbes.
Okay, so this isn't really like a shot at any of us because we were all on the same page about like not firing Rick Barnes, but pretty much all the people who said that they wanted to fire Rick Barnes wanted someone who was trained under Rick Barnes. I don't understand where their philosophy is there. It's like, oh, Kim English. I'm like, okay. So you're upset with the way that Barnes coaches, but then you want to bring in a former assistant, and what are you going to expect there? And on top of that, they don't have head coach experience, and they damn sure haven't been in the game as long as Barnes. So I'm also with Brando. I haven't really looked too hard into that in terms of who would replace him, But I do think that's kind of silly to be like, oh, I'm sick of Barnes, but let's bring in one of his former assistants. Unless they were just thinking that they have a different pace or they have like a more upgraded game because Rick Barnes has been around so long. But nonetheless, I don't really know. I haven't looked too far into it, but I'm sure you guys provided plenty of good options.
Lo, do you think that's because of Barnes' age? Because I've never thought about that, but you're right. Like we see his replacement is want somebody that was under him and thinking he's better. Maybe that's because they're younger. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know, but I that just kind of popped into my head, and I was like, well, you know what? I'm gonna freaking say it because it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So
That's one thing I will give to Barnes is with his coaching trees. I mean, lately, like everyone's been going on to be a head coach. You have Kim English, but I didn't even mention his name. Desmond Oliver at ETSU. Like, there's multiple coaches that come into this tree, and I wouldn't be surprised if the guys here now with their AAU backgrounds, don't go on with their recruiting capabilities. Like, we haven't really seen it, but behind the scenes, like they're really plugged in, and that's one thing he's been really good at is adapting to the game of the AAU and getting those kids on campus. I feel like.
Hey, while we're speaking basketball, let's just go ahead and shout out the Lady Vols. Sitting atop the SEC, sitting at 15-1, 4-0 in conference play, winners of their last 6. Let's just go ahead and brag on them a little bit. Looks like they're returning to dominance. Good to see them back on top of the college basketball scene. So
I agree.
The 15-16 season. So
Sure.
Okay. So anything else on this coaching thing? Because we have just a couple of questions from like our listeners.
Good.
All right. So I'm going to give this a shout out at Brian Young _5. He asked us what has happened or what has to happen to get our shooting back on track. Is there a mentality issue with this basketball team? There seems to be no confidence. I feel like we talked a lot about that, but if anyone has anything else to add to that question, feel free. Otherwise, we can move on.
I just want to say, like, we pretty much covered about how if the defense might affect it or not. And, honestly, we won't know until if they try to change up how they play defense. But honestly, the defense works the way Barnes coaches. So, but I think all you have to do, and people are going to say it, everyone's been saying it, but you just got to keep on shooting and hope that they're going to fall. Because when the season started, it was about, hey, we're going to change this up and lift up by the 3, die by the 3, just shoot. And one thing with Auburn, they'll have games, how we talk about Auburn and Bruce Pearl, they'll live and die by the 3, but they'll have games too where they don't hit those shots, and those games are their losses where they do have fun. But when they're effective, they're hitting shots, they're shooting and hitting everything. And I think back to that conference championship game where I don't even think they missed a shot for like 5 minutes. I'm just hoping that, translates over here with us and shooting, and that, Santee and Kennedy and Zakai and the guys can just hit shots.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be like way out left field, but like I honestly think like the one thing that would really help us try to get out of this funk is like finally start making our damn free throws. Because I mean, we're driving in the basket, we're drawing fouls, we're getting wide open looks, but we can't convert on the line. And I really believe, like, if we just start making them, like our players will start thinking, have this mentality that, they can get buckets, they can get points in every possession. And I think it will translate later on in more of the whole entire offense as well.
Drew, that's an excellent point because that's the highest percentage shot, right? So if we can't make that, then where's your shooting confidence at? I love that point. So next question, since we already mostly covered that one, at BRA Vols, I guess it's Bra Vols, I don't know. He asked us how we think the relationship is truly between Rick Barnes and Kennedy Chandler.
I wrote this down. I just put growing. I mean, I know he's recruited and all that. I mean, they've never had to interact as a player coach. It's usually the coach and recruit. I think it's growing. I have no idea. We're not behind the scenes. I hope it's improving. Growth and improvement can go hand in hand. Because like our struggles right now, and Drew's right. Like I think he said we're like 11-4 right now. I mean, if we come out and start balling out end of the year, SEC tournament, regular tournament, we're not going to remember all this crap. I hope it's good, and that's all I got on that, honestly.
Yeah, I'd agree with that and say that it's a growing relationship. I mean, when Kennedy does get subbed out, you'll see Barnes, stopping him and being like, "Hey, like you got to do this, you got to do that." And I think people have to understand that as a freshman, there's going to be a lot of that. I know a lot of people will think that Barnes coaches too hard or is too mean and too aggressive with what he says, but I think he's doing the right thing. It might be something that Kennedy's new to as well, going to this next level of basketball. And not really used to that kind of coaching. When at high school, he was just a star and levels on levels better than these kids. But I think Rick's doing it out of goodwill. He's not trying to just trash the kid. He's just, he's trying to get him to play to his potential. And I think over time that coaching is going to get to Kennedy, and hopefully, he starts balling.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with DR too, and saying that I think it's growing because Barnes is known to be tough on his point guards, and he is known to have point guards come in and be like, the point guard always says, "Well, I want to be coached by him because I know he'll be tough on me. I know that he's gonna instruct me the correct way on how to play this position, on how to be successful, this, that, and the other." So I think it's definitely a developing situation where they learn what they can and can't say, how they can and can't say something. I still think it's definitely fluid and definitely growing in that sense. So as long as Kennedy can take the heat, take the criticism, there's definitely a lot of praise to come from Barnes, because when his point guards are succeeding, he definitely makes it known and he definitely gives them praise and credit for that. So I think it's growing and developing, and definitely something to watch going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with just about everyone here. It's definitely a growing progress. They're definitely not holding hands and singing Kumbaya, kind of like how, Jeremy Pruitt and Jarrett Garantano were. But I mean, there's definitely some things that that's certainly going to improve on. Kennedy Chandler's still learning the college game, especially SEC style, and the brutality that has. And I think it's just one of those things that he's just got to learn to trust Barnes, because Barnes obviously knows what he's doing, what he's talking about. And I think it's something that'll progress. And I really believe that it's going to be a really good relationship by the end of the season and start coming to the conference tournament.
Yeah, all you guys, great answers. I just remember just reflecting, as a player, though, if I felt comfortable with my coach, then I would probably say more, right? So, if they're trying to sub me out, I would feel more comfortable being no, I don't need to come out or whatever. I was just kind of thinking back, I don't know, that it may be better than what we think, but honestly, none of us have any idea. We're not there and we're not them. So that's not a shot at Bravos' question. That's just me, we have no freaking idea, but I hope it's good and I hope it gets better. So good question though, because that has been another hot topic is, do they even like each other? I don't know. We don't know. Last question is totally off of basketball, which we've talked about for a long time. So kind of fun. At Thomas55G asked us what we think is a reasonable time period for our football team to compete for a playoff spot. This guy says he thinks 3 to 4 years to build depth. What does everyone think about the question, and what's your answer?
So I went and looked at our schedule in 3 to 4 years. So 3 years, 2025. We're going to open up the season with Syracuse and Atlanta. I'm not a Miss Cleo, but I think we should whoop their ass in 3 years. But we're also going to be at Bama, at Florida, and at Kentucky that year. And then we got Auburn, Georgia at home. 2026, I don't know who our cross or the other division rival, and we don't even know what it's going to look like then, but we got at Nebraska that year. Honestly, you can't answer this question. The SEC's changing. College football's changing. We're adding Oklahoma and Texas, which honestly we should beat both their asses because they're falling apart right now. I guess I'll go with that guy. 2 to 3 years. And honestly, it depends on college football expansion. If in 3 years we're still with 4 teams, then no, we're not going to be close. But now if we're up to 12 teams, then yeah, we're going to get in. You got to look at the the schedule ahead of time. 2023, we're at BYU. So after this next season, we're at BYU, and then we got freaking Texas A&M at home, who's got a better payroll than the Tennessee Titans right now with their recruiting class.
Oh yeah.
2024, we're at Oklahoma, and then we got at Mississippi State. So maybe 2024 at earliest 2 years, but we don't know who our quarterback is. And college football now is just so fluid, man. We don't even know. We could have 50 new players on our roster in 2 to 3 years. So obviously, and this is just all hypothetical. So I don't know. I'll say at minimum 2 years.
Yeah, it's really hard to answer this question just because the day and age, like you said, of adding and losing players. Like today we lost 2, but tomorrow we might add 2 more. And that all comes with the new transfer portal and the 1 year, rule of not sitting out and playing. But when looking also how you touched on it, if it expands or not to a 12-win team, there's many times where Heupel was able to get UCF in that top 10 range and finish in top 10, get them to a New Year's Six bowl. I think honestly he could do that here. So if that does happen, I think it's surely possible to maybe sneak into one of those 1 through 12 spots. But also thinking about our schedule, like we don't even know if that schedule is going to stick because, the pod system, if they release a pod system or how the SEC conference games are going to be split up, there's no telling what college football is going to turn into and how it's changing every day. It feels like every week we're getting some new article about how this conference is going to do this, is going to do that. And with the SEC adding Oklahoma and Texas, they're going to have to figure out a way to make teams be able to play each other. And I think it comes down to the luck we get with like division wise of who we play and are going to be our opponents, because 2024, you said there's Auburn, Georgia, at Florida, at Bama. And, being a team that plays that kind of schedule every year, it's literally we're the only team that has to go through that kind of pain of playing each one of those teams. So I think it all depends on how they realign it. If we can get the pods that people have predicted us in, like a Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, Vandy, or how they do it 4 teams, it just all depends how it comes of how they pick and choose the SEC play and the seeding. I think they're definitely going to expand 1 through 12. I don't know if it's the best move, but I think it's the best move for Tennessee. Maybe not college football, but if Tennessee wants to get back in that spot with their cards that they play against, it's going to have to be in that kind of area.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else I could say that both y'all ain't said yet, but I always kind of just take the 4 or 5 year range just so a coach has enough time to get a full cycle of players in. So he's got freshman to senior, and then hopefully in that 4th or 5th year, you can find a couple of star freshmen or a couple of star transfers that you can bring in, plug and play real quick, get them going, and then they elevate you to that next level. So you have the framework for a good team for a 9-3, 10-2 team 3 or 4 years in, and then that 4th or 5th season is where you get those star players that come in, take you to that next level, and get you to the promised land. Now, will that happen? Like y'all have said, I don't know. There's so many moving parts. We need to figure out our NIL stuff so we can get players first off and then keep players. That's definitely a big portion of the game now. And honestly, I don't know how Tennessee doesn't sell itself with the community following, the social media following, and just the sense of community around the whole state. Like, I mean, the whole state loves Tennessee from what I understand, except for Memphis, maybe. So like, aside from that, I don't know how we aren't like continually successful, but again, 4 or 5 year range, that's kind of my determining factor.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm even more pessimistic than everybody here. I think we're probably at least 6 or 7 years away, realistically, on even having a sniff in the college football playoff. And the reason I say that is because, you have a lot of these teams like, a lot of people want to talk about how Kirby Smart was able to take Georgia within his 2nd season to the college football playoff and national title. But the difference is, though, is that Georgia always consistently recruited top 10, top 5 classes. I mean, they even had number 1 classes under Mark Richt. And the difference with us, like, we've struggled in the recruiting aspect a lot within the last 10 years, especially. And I think it's just one of those things where we just have to continue to go on the recruiting and the only way we can really start beating out teams like Alabama and Georgia is where we beat teams like Florida and Kentucky on the field and consistently get 9 or 10 wins. And then after that, after a period of time, and you get those recruits and get those top 5 classes, we can. But it's like what Brandon says. I mean, we're playing Florida and Georgia and Alabama every year. I hope this new pod system, whatever it is, I have no clue what it is, if I'm going to be honest with you. But I hope it doesn't include us playing Alabama, because I'm getting sick and tired of watching us get our teeth kicked in by 35 every single season. So,
Drew, would you, if they came out right now and said we've moved the playoff to 12 teams, would it still be 6 seasons, you think?
yeah, I mean, maybe 5 if that's the case. But, like, you got to have, I mean, at least 2, 3 just lines of depth in every position to be able to go out and consistently rotate and play against those teams. And that's the huge issue, you know, not obviously this year especially, but, like, especially in 2016 with, you know, Kamara and Hurd and Dobbs, is that we had 0 depth in that offensive line and 0 depth in the defensive line outside of a couple players, and it killed us in that middle of the season where we played A&M and Bama and South Carolina. And that's where Heupel and all of them have to find a way to win out those recruiting battles and just get good, decent depth in there and be able to compete in that type of level.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we led in every game this year, but it all came down to depth. We have none right now, exactly. So I agree with you.
So I don't know. I took this question in kind of like a couple different parts. First of all, I don't think we should focus on national championship. I know that was his question, but say we win SEC championship and it's expanded to 8, we're definitely in the playoff. And then it depends on who we get there, but we may have already faced him and we may have already beat him. If we get to the SEC championship or win the SEC championship, I would see it in the same season just because of the level of competition. But with everyone's thoughts and takes and transfer portal and this, that, and the other, it's just impossible really to guess. If we could lock guys in, like Alex was saying, and we knew that they would be here for however long with NIL deals, that would be a little bit different. But I'll just go with 3 to 4 year range. But the truth is there's no idea. But I just really personally just want to see us. That's like really far-fetched in my mind. I want to see us get to the SEC championship, like within the next 2 years. That would be really awesome. It all depends on just transfers and, I mean, Saban, honestly, and Kirby. Is this a 1-year wonder or not? Who knows? Is Florida going to stay trash after losing all these people, or not stay trash because we lost to them? But you know what I mean. Are they going to hit the tank for a while? I don't know, but it depends on a lot of factors. But it's fun to think about. It's a great question. I love the question, but no idea.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Lo. Next 3 years, let's just keep up in 20 with Florida, Georgia, and Alabama, for God's sake.
Yeah. I think how Lo pretty much said it, if you do get it expanded to 8 to 12 teams and you do get in that SEC championship, like, who's to say that when it does expand, a 9-3 team that, you know, maybe snuck their way in, you know, gets into this 12-team playoff? You know, it's very well possible. And it all comes down to, you know, getting guys locked down, local companies buying in NIL-wise, and keeping guys to stay with playing time. Because as you saw, like, I mean, a couple Bama and Georgia players, they just played the national championship and they entered. You know, it all comes down to what these kids are feeling and how they're happy for the best athletes in the world. But, you know, I think if it does expand, it's very well possible that Tennessee can get in that range just because he's done it before at UCF. If you can only lose to Bama and Georgia, and, you know, heck, you might not even have to be in the SEC championship to play in the 12-team. You know, it just all depends. It all depends.
Absolutely. Great questions. Does anyone have any final thoughts for this evening? We've went for almost an hour and a half, but I've loved it.
Yeah, I've had a great time. So right before we went on, Calvert entered the transfer portal. Yeah. I didn't know if y'all saw that or not. And also, I meant to hit on this. This is going to go off, but I meant to say this earlier. Steve Forbes had a quote that I thought was interesting. He said you need to recruit offense and coach defense. And I think that may be a little bit of Barnes' problem this year, honestly. I'm not going to elaborate. I should have said that earlier, but I thought that was a really good quote.
Yeah, I won't try to hold everyone too long because I know we're trying to wrap it up. But I'm just we lost Calbert and Anderson Kobe, but like I said earlier, you'll lose some and you'll add some. I know there's some guys at those same positions that they talked to, and like landing a guy like Nayor from Wyoming that they did last week. I'm sure that, but I know they're talking to the Vanderbilt offensive tackle as well. So I don't know if Calbert. I know he was thinking about medically retiring, and now seeing his name in the portal, so that one surprised me. But I just think that the staff is starting to make some moves, talking to guys to bring him in. So I don't know how it correlates, but I just know that the guys we lose will add back.
Everyone good? Alex, Drew, you guys got anything else? All right. Well, I've had an awesome time. Again, Drew and Alex, I've loved having you guys on. You guys are so knowledgeable, and honestly, it's been great. Again, we had DR and Brando on. Bandit was out tonight. But wrapping this all up, like we all said, we're just analyzing stuff. No Folky hate, no Barnes hate. So don't jump our shit later. We're just answering questions and analyzing. So I guess we're just wrapping it up, and we will probably see you guys next week. We will let everyone know. But until then, go Vols.
Go Vols, baby.